麦克风。
Good morning, faculty, students, and other guests. I'm NYCU, a research fellow at the Liberal Arts College. And before Dr. Pauli begins his presentation, I would like to introduce our host today, Dr. Yang Guyang, the head of Liberal Arts College. 欢迎古阳书院长。
Gunter Pauli, Chairman, President. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for you come to this talk, especially in the word of platform. It's really my honor and pleasure to introduce our speaker, Professor Pauli. Okay, as you know, the talk of today is called Blue Innovation of Net Zero. Okay, and Professor Pauli is hailed as the father of blue energy. Okay, so we can expect how exciting this talk will be. Okay. And we have an honorable guest today, the Chairman of ASA, 宏基的董事长施正荣学长，对不对？Professor Pauli for a long time to realize these amazing ideas. Okay, before the talk, let's invite our president for a few words.
Yesterday, I was a little bit worried about whether we're going to have this wonderful talk to be taken this morning. If you check the weather right now, the typhoon Central is south of Taiwan Strait. It's approaching Taiwan. Initially, we thought it would make a turn north before hitting Taiwan. That didn't happen. And we thought that maybe it would hit Central Mountain, then it would be safer. No, that didn't happen either. And then it moved further west, okay, and it's about to turn right now. We are afraid that it will just cross the Taiwan Strait and all the way up. That would be a major disaster. But despite all that, look at the weather outside. It's so beautiful. So this morning, I particularly asked my team to issue a warning to all the students and our faculty members, staff, colleagues, that don't be cheated. Don't be cheated by the nature. Okay, I think this is probably one hidden message that Gunter want to point out today. And I also noticed that each time I see him, he's wearing a blue suit. Right? So, if I remember correctly, right? So he's certainly the master of blue innovation. I was about to read all the bibliography, which is maybe 10,000 pages. But I think maybe the best way is to have Stan, the 施学长, the founder of Acer and our most prominent alumni of NCTU, Cheltenham University, and right now NYCU. So please give a big applause to Stan.
Thank you, Gunter. I supposed to speak in Mandarin, but it looks like he speak in English. 各位教授、各位同学，Stan跟大家问好。I know the Gunter 41 years ago when he was a award for TYOB of 世界十大杰出青年。那一年在台湾颁奖联赛颁给我39岁，他27岁，到目前应该是最年轻的10届。The most youngest TYOB of the world so far. And 另外一位就是林凡宇，我们一起从那个时候 ，from that time we almost met every year. Okay. He know a lot of shit in Taiwan I don't know, like stone paper and like the master view, the 由大师主义做图的东西。太多东西了，包含立方银陵故事馆的馆长，he really the best friend of Taiwan. Even he started with me, the co-founding of the Polymer Future Ship. This ship is 20% ship, 20%, 80% technology because Taiwan is high-tech island. So I think we will make this future ship polymer become very famous all over the world. And we also position this is a shipless ship company, 不造船的船公司 the new way of doing business. And of course, now it's just beginning. From last year, we just found the company established this year. We start funding the capital last year, and this one I'm the chairman. I like to become very influential company in the world for the future. This is for public transportation, the oldest transportation approach, the ship. 大家知道运河那么早，所有的水运是比陆运还重要的。赤壁大战也是在水上打的，这个都是2000年以前的事情。So we like to welcome Pauli, and I hope you can reserve some time for Q&A. Yes, of course. So 我们欢迎 welcome the Mr. Dr. Pauli. He received 4 honorary degree, PhD, doctor of various fields. It's very unusual. I am also received 4 honorary doctor. Thank you.
No. Stan didn't tell everything. We are both monkeys. So who's a monkey? Who's monkey? Oh, so many monkeys. Monkeys give a lot of energy, you know that. That's one of the advantages of the monkey. I have been very privileged to really be working with Stan, and we never ever thought about doing business. This one. Thank you. I'm sorry. Stan and I, we know each other 41 years, and we never really thought about business. We just thought about getting things done. And if you get things done quickly and well, it'll be good business. But it's not because we want business, we want to get things done. And I think that has been a great privilege. But before I start, let me ask you to watch a video. I think it's important we realize she's beautiful, but she's finite. There are limits. And I especially pulled up this video because in the end you see the tornado getting ready. What I think we need to realize is that the situation is very complex. But we cannot only focus on the bad news. The great challenge we have is that we are overly analyzing the bad news. And we are not focusing on creating the good news. And academics, I have been professor 17 years. As academics, I think we make sometimes big error. We analyze too much. And analysis leads to paralysis. Analysis that we have done over the past 50 years is really understanding the problem. But better understanding the problem doesn't give you the solutions. And I think we need to shift the state of mind so that we will be focusing much more on solutions. I have been an entrepreneur. I have started more than 200 initiatives over 44 years. And I know that we have to focus on getting things done. Accelerate. And this is where I decided in 2009 to summarize 100 initiatives in one book. And I said, what if these 100 initiatives became business of everyone? What if we generate 100 million jobs? What if we only need 10 years? And I think if you put yourself into some very clear objectives, you very quickly realize that the way we have been designing the green economy is not going to get us to a sustainable society. That's the challenge. I was fighting during 30 years for the green economy, until I realized that whatever is considered a green product was expensive. Whatever is good for your health, whatever is good for the earth, is expensive. That means you must subsidize it. And if you subsidize it, it means you're not ready for a market economy. But what we then try to do is to simply cut costs. But cutting costs means you can't pay for the environment and you can't pay your workers well. You can't be competitive. And therefore, I think the change that we need is to come to what I call the blue economy. If you want to call it circular economy, if you want to call it the bioeconomy, I don't care about the name. What I care about is that we cannot achieve the objectives of sustainability by making products expensive. That doesn't work. So we need a new business model. I think universities have the responsibility to help design the business model that will empower many entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs not for the money, but entrepreneurs what I call for the common good. And that requires that we have to innovate. And you must be competitive. It cannot be that you say, oh no, I'm expensive, you must subsidize. And it is impossible not to generate jobs. We always need to generate better jobs because our next generations have to feel that they have a purpose in life. And the job may not be from 9 in the morning or 7 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. The jobs have to be jobs that create meaning. And that is the key. We have to focus on generating value. So the shift in the business model is from trying to be the cheapest with a supply chain to being the one that generates most value. And if you generate most value, you can do it. But if you generate value, you must know the basics of life. Let me challenge you here in the audience. This fish, is it a male or a female? I'm convinced you don't know. Of course, 50% will be right, 50% will be wrong. How come you eat fish, right? A lot of fish, but you don't know what's a male and what's a female. My son of 10 years old thinks that if you don't know the difference between male and female, you know nothing. And he's right. But how come we lost the knowledge of differentiating a male from a female fish? This is why I think you can send this picture to ChatGPT and it will not know. You can use artificial intelligence. Today there is no program for AI to know the difference between a male and a female fish. What do we know? I initiated in 2002 a program in Spain whereby every fisherman learned how to differentiate between male and female. And when they catch a female, back to the sea. You know what happens when you don't catch females? Surprise, they have babies. Surprise, after 10 years, we have 4 times more fish. 4 times more fish. And the only thing we did is not catch the female. You know, is this high tech? Is this artificial intelligence? Is this microelectronics? Is this microfluidics? No. You just know the difference between a male and a female. And I think this is why I insist we need solutions that work. And they work fast. Now, it's not easy to convince a fisherman not to catch the female. But now that we have the examples, not catching the female means in 10 years' time, 4 times more fish. That means double the amount of males. This is the kind of sustainability that I work on. And I always like to remind my audience that the work I am able to do is because I have many mentors. And what we need in an academic environment, if I may suggest to the President, we do not need more professors. We need more mentors. People who can really guide the young people to be inspired and to be challenged, to be told that they can do much better, or to be told to be more modest and humility. But we have no more of that guidance because everything becomes exams. And therefore, I work a lot with my students on what I call innovate or die. So here is, I teach eco-design at the Politecnico di Torino. I have an honorary doctorate in eco-design. Italy is famous for fashion design, car design, is famous for much of design. But I introduced in Italy system design. How to combine things together. So what was my mission to my students? Design me a cup of coffee. Design me a cup of coffee where the cookie is included and the sugar is delivered. This is the result. I think this is fantastic. This is the most ecological cup of coffee you've ever had. But it's also the most tasteful. And you can ask for a coffee with a lot of sugar or no sugar. What I want to say is that when we challenge young people, my experience, they all step up to the challenge. And they all learn from each other. But then, one of the things that Stan and I, when I wrote the book about, art and technology in nature, we need to include the arts. Because your communication over time is with the arts. So I challenged my same students, now that you made the cup of coffee, could you inspire me with coffee? What do you think about this? Inspiring me with coffee? Yeah. Chocolate. With a cup of coffee, with coffee grains. We need to challenge our young people, not only to be highly performant on the sciences or the humanities. It needs to include arts. And the artistic expression, even when I'm teaching eco-design, I'm asking them to include this. And that is where we have the difference. But we need the science. But within the science, I don't want to know so much about the microfluidics or the microprocessors. I want to know what I call the eternal knowledge. What is the knowledge that is embedded in everything we have? For example, you know how the apple goes down from the tree, right? The law of gravity. You don't pass middle school if you don't know the law of gravity. That is for me not eternal knowledge. Eternal knowledge for me is, how did the apple get up in the tree? Against the law of gravity. That's eternal knowledge. And I am quite convinced that no one in this room will know immediately the 7 laws of physics that permit an apple to go against gravity. Could you remember any the 7 laws of physics that allow an apple to go against? If you don't know how the apple goes up, what's the use of knowing how it comes down? How come universities don't have the eternal knowledge how everything keeps on functioning in life? We need to understand, and it's physics. It's not chemistry. It's chemistry. Of course there's a good doses of biology, molecular biology involved. But go home tonight and write down the 7 laws of physics that allow an apple to go up against. And try ChatGPT, doesn't know it either. ChatGPT has no clue how the apple goes up in the tree. So what's the use of ChatGPT? Just a smart library. But it's not intelligence, not know-how. And it's certainly not the eternal know-how. When in 1986, 38 years ago, I read for the first time the International Panel of Climate Change report on climate change. I said the goal is 0 emissions. It must be 0. I mean, when this is what the scientists are proposing, we must adjust. But the question is not, do we adjust? Do we know we can adjust? So I had registered as a trademark 0 emissions. Then Toyota came to see me. And Toyota said, would you please release? Because we don't want to pay you. We think this should be common for everyone. So I agreed with Toyota. I will release on the condition 2 years you do advertisement for 0 emission. So this is Toyota advertising in Time magazine. This is in Newsweek. Toyota for 2 years ran a global campaign to make everyone aware 0 emission is the goal. And this has been for me one of the very interesting partnerships. Because how do you reach 0 emissions and how do you reach a positive goal? For that we need to go back to nature. So let me tell you the story very briefly. They're a deer. This is Yellowstone National Park in the United States. When there's deer and there's river, where do the deer eat? They eat on the border of the river. Why? The grass is the juiciest. The grass is very juicy. But if the grass is very juicy, what happens is if you have the deer eating all the time, you get rocks. Because they overgraze. If there are rocks on the river, that means there will be too much minerals in the water. That means that the eggs will not hatch and you will have less fish. So, you lose fish because the deer eat the grass. That's the way we have to learn how to think. And so how do we get the fish back? Well, by introducing the wolves. Because the moment that the wolves are back in the park, the deer will never eat along the river. Because the deer knows if they're eating along the river, the wolves will catch them very easily. This is how I design business. This is how I design entrepreneurial business models. And I'm thinking, where is the wolf? Who is going to make certain that the system will work? Because the moment the grass is growing again, along the side, I will have a lot of fish. I don't need to manage every detail. I need to design the system. And that's why we started in the Politecnico di Torino in Italy, the world's first course on eco-design, and we call it today system design. We have the PhD programs. We have now about 50 PhDs graduated already from our school. I was invited to the United Nations, the University of the United Nations in 1994. And the United Nations University in Tokyo and the Japanese government requested me to prepare for the Kyoto Protocol for COP3. So with my friend Fritjof Capra, we wrote this book, Steering Business Towards Sustainability. We argued very clearly, you can't legislate sustainability. You can't write all the laws. You can write laws to stop the very bad, but you can't write laws to create the good. And that book actually became the first book in history presented on broadband internet video, 1995, 5th of April 1995. We used 50% of the internet capacity between Japan and the United States by presenting just one book. Unfortunately for me, or fortunately, when the Kyoto Protocol was adopted, it was not decided to change the business model. It was not decided to change the technologies. It was decided to trade carbon credits. And that is where I lost my opportunity to influence the policymakers, but where I received the opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And one of my very important initiatives was to create a factory without emissions. This is a detergent company. The factory is actually made out of wood. It's a wooden factory. The inside is completely made out of wood, local wood, laminated wood. And what you saw as well, is that this is not on Sunday, or this is not my company on strike. I had no cars in the company. How can you have an industry and your workers don't come by car? Well, this is very simple, because I had a bicycle parking. How do you motivate people to come on a bicycle to work when it's raining and it's winter time? You pay them. I paid my worker €0.50 per kilometer to ride a bicycle to work. €0.50, that's 20 NTS. 20 per kilometer to ride the bicycle to work. You know what happens? Everyone rides a bicycle to work. You don't have to convince them. Just pay. And of course, there are some people who say, and what is your benefit? This is very expensive. No, my benefit is that my people exercise 2 times a day. If they exercise 2 times a day, summer and winter, they'll be in good shape. So I've proven absenteeism in my company very low, because everyone in good shape. You know, this is not AI or high tech. This is just humanities. This is just social science. And I must admit, there's a second reason why it paid off very well. Because normally, if you have 100 people working for you, you need 100 parking places. I only had 8 parking places. Why? Because I had bicycle parking. As a result, I could reduce the number of parking places, which saved me a lot of money. And actually, the reason why I could pay €0.50 per kilometer for my 100 employees is because that was the saving in the land, the paving of the parking, the security system, the entrance, the guards, all is gone. So actually, I didn't pay anything. What I should have paid in parking, I now paid to my people, and my return was health. This is designing, the new business, and this is how we succeeded in going very fast. My issue was, of course, that as a detergent company, I was using palm oil, and palm oil is highly destructive. And since I'm a monkey, I can't have my brother orangutan suffer. So I decided to initiate an innovation program. What could I use instead of palm oil? And what I realized is that in Brazil, they started to industrialize orange juice. Can you imagine 73% of all the orange juice in the world comes from Brazil? So if you have orange juice, then you have peels. And in the peel, you have a chemical called D-limonene. And D-limonene is a natural detergent. So we initiated, and today there are 8 factories in Brazil using the skin of the citrus fruit to make detergent. This is business model. What is my cost? Cheaper than palm oil. Oh, but you're giving value. Yes, I'm giving value to the skin of a citrus fruit. Taiwan was one of the first buyers of the D-limonene, and some of your detergent companies actually use our D-limonene from Brazil. If it's biodegradable today, it's either palm oil or D-limonene. I have been fortunate to work with a lot of scientists. And again, the question would be, what is the eternal knowledge that is in a whale? Because whales are amazing creatures. The heart of the whale pumps 1,000 liters every heartbeat with 6-volt direct current. Where does it get the electricity from? How does a whale produce electricity? 80 years, no maintenance, no batteries. So I want to know the eternal knowledge of the beating of the heart. How come my heart is not beating great? And so, by analyzing this, I immediately translated into a program for children. So the children learn how bioelectricity is made. What are the 3 chemicals that you need in your body for electricity to be made? Do you know? You don't know how your heart works? What do you know when you don't know what your heart works? It's potassium, sodium, calcium. When a child of 3 knows the word potassium, sodium, calcium, they want to know, what in my food has it? Because the whale can pump 1,000 liters because of its food. This is eternal knowledge. This is how life functions. And if we don't teach everyone in the room that it's potassium, sodium, calcium, and that you figure out you need a banana, you need an egg, or you need a lemon, then you realize that with only an eggshell and a banana peel, you can make electricity. And once the children have made electricity themselves, don't convince them you need a nuclear power station. It's impossible to convince them. because they've made their own electricity. This is where I would like to urge universities to be much more ready to discover. This is an octopus. You know, the octopus is older than the dinosaur. 280 million years old. Before the dinosaurs were there, the octopuses were there. And my friend made a movie, My Octopus Teacher. You know, some people don't realize, but this is an octopus hiding from the shark. I mean, this is quite intelligent, isn't it? I mean, you dress up like a shell so that the shark will sail by and will not eat you. Let me share you this video.
It's early morning late summer. Marine biologist Anna Slanshaw and I are diving as usual, documenting 1001 sea forest species, a multi-year project to highlight the lives of animals in the kelp forest. On our way out, we're distracted by an octopus in the shallows. Octopus vulgaris is number 1 on a list of 1001. This individual is very curious. Today we're looking for number 267, the shaggy sea hare, but the octopus has other plans for us. She glides out of her den in an unusual bold move. I back away as fast as I can, but she's too quick. And grabs my camera while the others is filming and laughing in his snorkel. I don't want to alarm her by taking the camera from her. I'm hoping she'll let it go, but she grinds the lens into the gravel. The suckers explore and taste the camera. Then she slowly turns the camera to face us and starts filming. She gives us a moment to look at the world from her perspective, to look back at us. It's hard to imagine what her life is like, but she helps us to consider the lives of all the species who share our planet. When the lens was turned on us, we both realized that number 1001 should be Homo sapiens, the human being in the sea forest. We're part of wild nature, part of this underwater forest. She gives us inspiration to keep going with our work, to shed light on those who have no physical voices, but whose biological presence keeps us breathing. Eventually she gives my camera back. I'll need a new lens, but the lesson she has taught us is priceless.
Can you imagine the octopus is a thief stealing the camera? This is not something that you just eat. I mean, I must admit to you, I can't eat octopus anymore. This is too smart for an animal. Actually, we talked with Jane Goodall, who is the great expert on primates. And for Jane, this octopus is a primate of the sea. And I think one of the most important things is that we have seen the discovery of microelectronics, we've seen the discovery of artificial intelligence, but we don't even know the intelligence that's right there. And this is real intelligence. For example, the octopus is the only animal that knows when the typhoon is arriving. Perfectly. Why? Because the octopus has a sensor, and that sensor measures water density. And what we do is when we look at the weather, we look at air density. Low pressure means bad weather. Very low pressure means typhoon. But the water is nearly 800 times more dense than air. And therefore, if the water is not so dense, that means typhoon is coming. When you want to look at the epicenter of the typhoon, in that area, 10 square kilometers around, no octopus. They're all gone. They don't have to wait for the weather forecast from the satellites. They figured it out themselves because they have water density sensors. And when 2, 3, 4, 5 octopus start moving out, everyone in the sea has noted that the octopus moves out and everyone moves out. Epicenter of the tornado never creates massive death in the sea because life at sea goes away, guided by the octopus. I want our boat, we will talk about, to be the first one to have density sensors of the water. Scientists in the beginning said, no, that's too difficult to measure. Why is it difficult? If an octopus can do it, I can do it. Scientists today do not have water density measurements in their equipment. Every octopus has it. And I think this is where we need to have, it's called biomimicry, but it's really in the end is meaning learn how to observe. And let me challenge you last time. What is so special about this ray? This one. What is special about this ray? Do you like to eat ray? It's a very expensive fish if it's a good quality. You know what is special about this one? Do you recognize the specialty of this fish? This ray? She's pregnant. Ah, how come I see it and you don't see it? I mean, when a woman is pregnant, we know it immediately. But when we see a fish, we eat her and we didn't even figure out she was pregnant. The pregnancy you can see here. Because the ray carries the babies on the back, not in the belly. This is the basis of biology. So I teach in Rio de Janeiro the fishermen not to catch a ray with babies on the back. What is the result? The result is that we have more baby rays being born. And in the Bay of Rio de Janeiro, we now have the 4th largest concentration of rays in the world. Why? Because the fishermen learned to look and say, oh, she's pregnant, she better goes back to the sea. I think I've insisted enough, but I like to insist a bit more. This is the famous Delicia pulcra. Stan, in this company, I invested in 1996. What is the specialty? Who here is a diver? Who's diving? With bottles. Anyone diving? No one? Ah, one. Okay. When you dive and you touch anything in the sea, it's always slimy because there is biofilm. The sea is a soup of bacteria. It's not the sea, it's not water. 1 cubic millimeter gives you 1 million microorganisms. So they create biofilm. When they create biofilm, bacteria start communicating with each other. They're quorum sensors. That means they learn to figure out how many of us are here together. When we have a too high quorum, we need antibiotics to get rid, but it doesn't work very well. This is one of the first seaweeds that ever came, and this seaweed lives in the Pacific Ocean between Australia and Taiwan. in Japan. And this one has a disruptor for the hearing of bacteria. Did you hear me? It disrupts the hearing. That means bacteria don't know where are the other bacteria. It's a chemical called a furanone. A furanone. And a furanone is a quorum sensing disruptor. That technology, I think, Stan, we never talked about it, but that technology was acquired by Unilever. Why? Because one of the biggest problems in food processing is that you always get bacteria. Always have this risk of bacteria creating a film, and then we eat the food and we get sick and we even die. And you can't keep on using antibiotics because they will mutate. They're bacteria, they're single cells, they don't have their DNA enriched into this very core messaging system, and therefore they can adjust very quickly. What we have introduced is the adaptation to this new technology of blocking communication amongst bacteria. This brought me to Tanzania, and this is where we started in 1993 with the farming of seaweeds. Seaweeds has always been around, but never done into a business. But we created 23,000 jobs for women. Today, Tanzania is the 4th largest exporter of seaweeds to the world. Taiwan has given up on its seaweeds. You don't care about it anymore. You'll just make chips thanks to that. What we need to see is where is the knowledge in this? Because we don't have a food industry. And I'm very happy to learn that the new president of Indonesia has decided that the biggest growth of Indonesia will be in the seaweed business. 5 million new jobs will be created by creating seaweed farms. Seaweed farms take out the nutrition from the ocean. And since the seaweed doesn't fight against gravity, it grows very rapidly. We were instrumental in designing for Biocolloid, which is an Italian joint venture. How do you design this? And seaweeds, they need also on the other side mangroves. The mangroves, they give us a new ecosystem. The ecosystem gives us biodiversity. And then, where is the money? Where is the value? Because investing in seaweed forest and investing in mangrove costs money. So we designed these systems where in between the mangroves you have a metal mesh, and when the shrimps are small, they're larvae, they live into the mangrove forests, protected by the reefs and the seaweeds, and they eat the microalgae. When they grow too big and they can't get out anymore. They're trapped. If you have a lot of shrimps, you will have a lot of crabs, because crabs come automatically where the shrimps are. They love to eat it. What is the beauty of the system? Is that this system is a regenerated mangrove, but it's generating shrimps and crabs we don't have to feed. If you don't have to feed the shrimps and the crabs, what's your cost price? The cost price of regenerating the mangroves. You see the business model? You know, that kind of business model is extremely efficient, fast producing, and even behind the seaweeds now, behind the mangroves, we're growing rice. And when you have rice, biodiversity comes back. Our design is clusters. Now, in these clusters, you generate multiple cash flow. So instead of having one business with one focus, we design like an ecosystem with multiple revenues, multiple benefits. And when you generate multiple benefits, I can decide that the crab will be expensive and the shrimp will be cheap. because I have two income. Or I can decide the shrimp is expensive and the crab is cheap. Or I can decide I will sell overseas at a high price and I'll sell locally at a low price. I can decide because I have the cash flow, multiple cash flow. And that's the design of the new business model. And we apply that to everything. You know, I'm very engaged in the microplastics problems that we are facing around the world. And one of our goals is to create what I call microplastic-free areas. And everyone always tells me it's too expensive, costs a lot of money. Who said so? If you think it costs a lot of money, then you do not know how to design the business model. The business model needs to be designed so it is not expensive. Or, better, you generate so much more value that you can pay for it. The entrepreneur of tomorrow is not the one who finds the cheapest cost. The entrepreneur of tomorrow is the one who identifies the opportunity to generate more value. The search for solutions of microplastics brought me to microfluidics. I believe that in the next 50 years, the science of microfluidics will be as important as microelectronics were 50 years ago. You know, when you have, for those who are not engineers, when you have a big pipe and something must flow through the pipe, you need pumps. When you have very tiny pipes, you don't need pumps, it flows on its own. Wow, why do we do big pipes and why do we do small pipes? Unfortunately, we are so fixed on the big pipes that 10% of the energy in the world is used to pump. We're pumping all the time. Energy efficiency means we need to go through the microfluidics. And microfluidics will be having this enormous impact compared to microelectronics. We use microfluidics today to manufacture hydrogen. We use microfluidics to extract microplastics. We have such a set of applications that I think we have a future that is going to be very different. My last part of my presentation is about, of course, the internet. I have already alluded a few times that the internet of what we see today is not the best for us to have. But this to me is the biggest problem. Do you do this in the morning? When you wake up, you take your phone and check the latest messages from all night. It means that your eye, you know, when I look at you, I see all of you in 3D. Right? Because our eye is 3D. Your eye wakes up, your brain starts going, and you force your eye to look at a little screen in 2D. What happens to your neurons? When you have an interface screen that is 2D, you use 1,000 times less neuron than when you're looking at 3D. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what it means? You're making yourself stupid. You are not activating your neurons. This is a crime. So please, when you wake up in the morning, don't look at the screen. Look at the outside. Look at the sky. Open up those pupils and do the 3D exercise. Because the problem with our digital world is that our digital world is only in 2D. All our interface is in 2D. And as a result, when a child is not reading a book, but a child is reading an iPad, you're turning the child stupid. You're not giving it a chance to develop the neurons. And a child needs to develop and activate the neurons so that they get connected 2D doesn't do it. I publish my fables. I write children's stories, and they're published in China. 365 of my books are published in China, and they're distributed to the schools in China. Chinese government decided that none of the books on the tablet to activate 3D brain. This is smart. And I think this is what we need to focus on. But the second thing, not only is it in 2D, it is slow. If you think that internet is fast when you have 5G, then come to my office. We are using Li-Fi. We're using the fastest internet available today, which is an internet that is based, We have an internet that is based on light. Our light internet today, we have 252 gigabits per second. 2,000 times faster than the best internet you have with 5G. Does your university have that? ITRI has it. ITRI has been developing it. How come the industry hasn't accepted it? Because we've decided to go wireless. And when you're wireless, the wireless Wi-Fi is incapable of transmitting 252 gigs per second. Doesn't work. Wi-Fi is not made for that. Our iCloud is not made for that. It is made to go slow. It's made to do 2D. So the revolution that we will be seeing is that we will see more and more going 3D. This is the 3D screen. Actually, I have one with me here. Afterwards, you guys can come and have a look. We have the first 3D screens made by a company based in Hong Kong and in Brooklyn called Looking Glass. And last night, my son is working with this. This is my son. But last night, here is Stan. Here is Stan. And this is the inventor, Sean Frey. And Sean invented the 3D screens without any glasses. When you go, though, 3D, you can't do it with Wi-Fi. You need to have a connection. That means we're rethinking, again, how we're doing transmission over internet through light, but how we have to stop using the cloud and work with local area networks. You see the shift. No more cloud, no more satellite, no more Wi-Fi. Why? Because the big shift that we'll be making is to go through an internet based on full 3D. What is the good news? The good news is that when the web, the internet goes to 3D, Microsoft, Google doesn't work in. You can imagine they're going to fight this for a while. But we know that there is a great force in humanity that will want to change this, the video gamers. Because if you're a video gamer, you want full 3D. You don't want virtual reality. You don't want to sit with this mask on your face all day. You want to be able to enjoy it. To conclude, let's remember the following. 99.9% of all the data that is available on all computers today is related to land and air. As a result, we do data mining. We have so much data, we're mining the data. But only 0.1% of the information that we have available is about the sea. If you only have 0.1% of the data on the sea, that means you have no strategy for the sea. It means you know information, no strategy. And this is the reality. That is why one of the big proposals that Stan and I are making with our new business models is we have to start farming data. But data farming, particularly on the sea. No one is connecting that of the sea. And the great proposal we're making is that instead of having more bridges and freeways and subways, we need the metro of the sea. We need to be able to use the technology that we call swarm intelligence. We need to be able to be mobile at sea. Taiwan is an ideal country to create mobility, but you have never looked at the sea because you're even afraid of the sea. Until a few years ago, you couldn't even have your own ship in the sea. It was prohibited. So we changed the mindset of going into an intelligence whereby you're carefully connecting everything. This is a model that we made for an island in Spain. How do you create mobility on an island? By using the sea. Not by using freeways and subways. Not by building bridges. And that's a complete new engineering. So there, the great initiative that Stan and I have taken is to industrialize ships that do not need energy, fossil fuel, but that will run on hydrogen and solar, and actually are operating with what you have. We have zero fuel. This ship was first designed in 2008. It was built in 2010, went around the world without a drop of oil. We need to be able to see the new technologies that allow us to have propulsion. And the boat is called Orima, which is basically a goddess of the future in the Roman mythology. That's a robot. This is a sail that operates like the wing of an airplane. 550 square meters of solar. The sail is pulled up only 40 square meters. It can pull the boat. And when the boat is being pulled by the sail, you generate hydrogen. As Stan was saying, this is 80% technology, 20% boat. And the boat can be made anywhere, but technology is very closely controlled. Actually, when Stan invited me the first time to discuss it, we didn't know that so many of these technologies were actually in Taiwan. Now we realize just about everything is available in Taiwan. The boat can be a hospital, can be a diving unit, but it generates its own energy. It is a data farm, and you bring financial engineering to it. The boats operate 24 hours a day, not just once upon a time. A freeway operates 24 hours a day. A bridge operates 24 hours a day. Mobility at sea must be operating 24 hours a day. And as a result, this type of ship gives you an introduction to the mobility, to renewable energy, to artificial intelligence, to the swarm intelligence. It gives you water and power. And you learn how to adjust production technologies. Can you imagine a boat today? Each boat is still made individually and only one. I mean, we're still at the times of the Romans and the Chinese emperors. We need to industrialize, and that's the challenge that we have taken on. I write stories for children, but I also write stories for the child in you. Because you all have to wake up the child in you. We have to sometimes think and dream and imagine, because otherwise the entrepreneurship will only do what has been done before. We need to have a communication that is inspiring and not just transferring knowledge that we have. And the inspiration, well, I must say the way it is. The only country that has adopted all my fables and brought it to all children is China. It's quite an amazing situation that I, as a foreigner, have been invited to help bring a revolution on the education there. But this is one of my favorite stories that I've written. It's about masters and grandmasters. If you have a good mentor, you're inspired, you want to learn more. A very good mentor, a very good professor, he will actually secure that you will be better than the professor. If a good professor, a good master, has good students, then the master can learn from all his good students. Then he will be a grandmaster. And his students, well, will all become masters. And if you are a master and you have many good students who also become masters, then you turn into a grandmaster. Because you learn from your students. If you inspire well, you learn well from anyone who inspires. And this is how I envision the University of the Future. A place where you're inspired. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pauli, for the enlightening, inspiring speech. It's now the Q&A session. So, any questions? Please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you.
We will take the Q&A session, okay? So is there any question from the audience? Maybe I can start the first one. From your talk about, the mentor, and actually recently I've been learning about called peer learning, and that seems to be more effective than the traditional hierarchical structures. And the terms professors actually is equivalent to profession. It's meant to build your what we call hard skill, and but then along with your soft skill that you also refer to in the talk. So with all that content, especially the last part of the talk, so what would you suggest or what would you predict the future higher education would be look like?
I think that many of the universities will become empty buildings because more and more students want to learn in the fields. I think that the education. Thank you. I think we need to learn from a famous military leader called Napoleon. Napoleon lost 2 big wars. He won all the other ones, but he lost a very important war. But what we should ask ourselves, how did Napoleon declare education as an obligation for all the students? And he didn't have teachers, and he didn't have books. He introduced what you call the peer learning, what in those days they called it mutualism. That means I learn from you. I'm your professor, but I learn from you because you are quick to think and you think out of the box. I am in my little box, and so I need actually you to tell me what have you learned or what you think you will learn, and that will inspire me. And then someone who is your junior wants to know more from you because the junior thinks that you have studied already 3 years, you know more, you should tell me. And the books that you can read, I can't read because I'm not yet there, but you can give me a summary in a few minutes. And as a result, Napoleon is the one who created the free education, but obligatory for all students till 16, and they had to sit in a circle outside. And there was one book for 350 students, one book. And they needed one person in the circle who could read. And after 6 months, everyone could read. How was this possible? Well, they were learning from each other. So I think the first big lesson is that, as you insinuated, professors will not be professors anymore standing in front and teaching. We will have much more circle. My sons go to a school in Switzerland where there is no classroom. Every classroom is a boardroom. Everyone sits around the table. Also the teacher. The teacher doesn't stand up front. There is not one screen. There are 3 screens. And you can write on the table. So I think we will go very much to the mutualism, learning from each other, and secure that our teachers become the embodiment of the knowledge in the room. Not the one who knows everything and who teaches everything, but the one who will become the depository of the emerging knowledge that there is. I give you an example of my son with two cases. First of all, my son is in NFTs. He actually makes 3D NFTs and manages the artificial intelligence to transform, at the age of 12, his photography into 3D NFTs. Where can he learn that? But tell me, where is the school? There's no school. Who's the teacher who can teach that in high school? There's no teacher who can teach that in high school. But he's interested. How do we secure he learns what he feels is his? Second example. He knows I'm an ecologist and he knows I have this boat that has no fuel. So he said, Dad, but you're flying a lot. You're still using a lot of fuel. Okay, you're right. I fly a lot. So he said, Dad, we need to have electric planes. So he finds out that there are electric planes, 2-seaters, and so he's 15, and at the age of 16, he will have his license for flying electric plane, not plane, electric plane. You know, how much can I learn? I think I will never be a pilot of an electric plane, not be a pilot of a plane. But this kind of interest that is in the room, how do we channel it so that in the end, the professor or the teacher is the very privileged person who has learned everything from everyone all the time. And then will be really a person with a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, and I do think the strength can be further prepared by the data and data mining, data science, and artificial intelligence.
That is right, but you see, I think we are still in such an early stage of the artificial intelligence. I don't dare to call it intelligence. You know, I think we have overqualified what we have. And unless it's not in 3D, it is no intelligence. All knowledge we will have to, first of all, separate from text. Mathematics is different. We have to separate from text. And we have to be much more visual and auditive and sensory, because our intelligence is based on 5 senses, not on reading only.
Great. So, are there any more questions from the audience? One?
Hi, Professor Pauli. I'm Panam, first of all, and I also do some researches. I'm a rocket scientist, and I did some research in Switzerland some few years ago. As a Taiwanese citizen, I actually want to ask you, as a presenter, what kind of expectations you have for this month?
For Taiwan or for
For Taiwan. Rocket science, you could give recommendations as well.
I give my big recommendation in rocket science. I think in 25 years we will not use rockets anymore, except to go to our real outer space. The big science today is to, to put satellites in orbit.
The electric plane we're using, actually, we plan that within 10 years, our electric plane will be able to go to 50 kilometers altitude on a plane. Why? Because we don't have a combustion engine. Combustion engines don't work at 50 kilometers or 25 kilometers because there's no oxygen. Electric plane doesn't need the oxygen. We are actually preparing to launch satellites from an electric plane in 10 years' time. We will invalidate Elon Musk's technique. Why? Because he needs rockets to go up. We will need a plane, and the plane will just dive down. Zero gravity dive down. And that will be possible with electric planes. And that is done in Switzerland. Look up solar stratos. That's the technology. I'm on the board of that company. It's called Solar Stratos. It's based in Payerne, in the French part of Switzerland. And we're already going today with an electric plane to 12,000 meters altitude. This changes the whole logic of rocket science. And this is where I think we have the great opportunity to rethink. So my son is actually dreaming of having picosatellites of 100 grams loaded on his electric plane, going up and saying, I will just throw up my little picosatellites into the atmosphere, into our atmosphere, and we will eliminate the technology of the rockets. Except when you go to Mars, you still need to have it. That's different. But you know, the big business is not going to Mars or to the moon. The big business is get up and launch satellites.
Okay, elaborate? Yes.
I just see I have a friend in the back. This is the captain of the ship. Actually, Fred, stand up. As is Fred. Yeah. So if you have questions about the ship, ask him.
Yes, thank you, Professor, for your inspiring speech. And as you mentioned before, you want to create an ecosystem for just rewarding people to do the right things in economy. But recently, I have read a news about Europe are testing people for carbon emission. In my perspective, that test is kind of a torture to companies and entrepreneurs, but not a reward system. So, what is your opinion to carbon test now applying in Euro region?
Which test? Oh, the carbon tax. Oh. I think all of that will go away. I think the European Union, with lots of its regulations, will have a very hard time to make it work. Why? Because it is in the green economy. Remember, in the green economy, it's taxes, it's subsidizing, it's more costs. And that means you eliminate yourself from the market. You need to have carbon reduction. I agree with the objective, but the way to get to the objective is the wrong one. I think this heavy regulation and this heavy taxation is not going to create transition. It's going to create resistance. Because those who will fully oblige will be out of the market. And that is the challenge we're facing. So exactly what you mentioned is where we try to have a design of a business model where I don't need to have the subsidy. I don't need to have the taxation in order to be able, or the heavy regulation to go forward. That's the key. So, in summary, change the business model. Don't force the existing model to be able to do the carbon reduction as we need. Change the model and it will be done. Bring in the wolf
and the deer will not eat the grass anymore. And they are still happy. I mean, it doesn't mean the deer are not happy anymore. They're still happy. They can still have their babies and they still can roam around in the forest, but they're not eating the grass anymore. That's the way we have to think. But I do know many governments don't think that way. That's why we should have democracy, so we can show the difference.
Great. I think we have time maybe for the last question.
Sorry, I also have a question.
Okay, two.
Pauli. So,
Short, please. Yeah. This one here first. One moment. One. This one first, and then you. Okay.
I particularly interesting about the center's ecosystem design program in the university in Europe, and there's already more than 50 students are graduates, and I'm thinking that no matter the nationality or everybody knows that the job market is important for any student for seeking a higher education, because salary is an important element. So I wonder that the job market in your imagination in the beginning and when designing the kind of program and the job market in reality after they graduates. Thank you.
See, too much of the job market until today was kind of like, I need an electronic engineer, give me the electronic engineer. I need a function. I think we're going to move away more and more from the job market of functions to a job market of problem solving. You know, we're going to face a lot of uncertainties. There are going to be a lot of shifts. We need people who can be problem solvers. And if I need electronics, I'll use electronics. If I need microfluidics, I will need microfluidics. If I need AI, I will have the AI. If I need to go and watch the octopus, then I will watch the octopus. But I can navigate in order to be a problem solver. So industry, I think, is looking much more for people who are problem solvers. And they will be very valuable. All our students are hired by industry to be what I call the problem solvers, because they don't look at, I'm for or against an electric plane. They say, no, what can I solve with an electric plane that no one else can do? And as a result, we see an opportunity, oh, we can do satellites at 50 kilometers altitude with an electric plane. Wow, that means that, look at the business that Elon Musk has created. We can do this with a plane. We need permits, we need problem solving. Problem solving in an area where you solve the problem, and by seeing how you solve the problem, you create opportunities. And that would mean the company has growth strategy. Solving problems, seeing new opportunities. That's where the job market will go for.
Okay, great. The last question, okay?
So, I was wondering, Professor Pauli, in your blue economy model, do you have any specific experiences or examples that includes more maybe women roles in your kind of model, or how can we improve the gender equality in the new system?
It's very nice that you asked me that, because the 23,000 jobs we generated in Tanzania were only women. Only women. So I am not doing things because of the gender, but sometimes women just have a better aptitude to be dealing with the seaweeds and being able to get them out of the village and get them into a productive life so they can manage the budget of the family. So we have quite a few of those initiatives, but I would not say we don't do it because of the women, but we do it so that as a result, women will be integrated.
better into the productive and significant life of all.
Okay, thank you for the example. If there is more of those, I would really like to know more about those.
Well, we have quite a few of the cases where we look at how actually, you give more value to what you have. It's very clear that in many societies, women are not giving value at all. And that means society is losing out a lot. Communities are losing out a lot. So, if you read the book, The Blue Economy, it's still available in Taiwanese. So the book is available in complex Chinese, and you will see at least a dozen cases that exemplifies how actually women found an opportunity to really discover their innate capabilities for doing that specific activity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think because of the time, let's just give up the applause to Professor Gunter Pauli. Thank you. Thank you.
Now President Lee will present a special gift to Dr. Pauli.
Thank you. That's graduation. And if someone wants to have a closer look at the 3D screen, some of you want to have a closer look at the 3D screens that are now available.
大家可以去看一下前面刚那个 Dr. Pauli 介绍的有 3D 的那个。